Hi Grace. Okay, so here's your past life spread. What we're going to do is we're going to look at where we are, what you did for the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day, the death and the lesson learned, and we'll get hints of time throughout, okay? And so where we're starting, and by the way, your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can from what we're looking at here to your current life. And I'll try to help however I can. And I'm just relaying to you the images and impressions that I'm getting, okay? All right, so we're starting off here in Asia. And while that's clarifying about where we're looking at in Asia, we are looking at what you did with the majority of your time, and we're going into the food industry. So with Asia, what's interesting is it's taking me to a place where it's more, I want to say we're looking more like at Russia, and we're looking at I want to say like a city, a very thriving, full, busy city, probably a major city, and it feels like it would be there today as well. And I feel like we're looking at a time period where it was very like, not traditional in the Russian sense, but very like, it feels like 1800s basically is what I'm saying. Like women dressing with like full dresses, like full attire. There's an emphasis on men and women in high society dressing in full attire, and I feel like we're looking at a woman here, a woman's life, who is part of the high society, and I feel like she's someone like she's in the center of all the action. It feels like it's almost like she comes from a very well-off family, and I don't know if it's having to do with like political or not, but there's like an attachment, like this person comes from a very well-off family and is expected to marry into a very well-off family. It's that kind of thing. It feels like a very traditional kind of living. So I'm just trying to see what's going on here as far as the food thing, because I feel like with these cards, so if this is the food card, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a chef always. I mean, it has, meant that before, but in this case, it feels like food in this instance, in this life, is actually used constantly as a mechanism in a couple of ways. Like, I feel like food plays a central role in this person's life, but not in a career way, because I feel like we're looking at someone who doesn't have to work, kind of like that traditional, raised to be a wife and mother. So I feel like we're looking at someone who is not only learning how to it's interesting too, because you're not learning how to cook. It's more like a feeling of learning how to tell the cooks in the kitchen how to cook what people like to cook. Does that make sense? So in your current life, one, if you have any pull towards Russian art, history, language, pictures that you might see of like St. Petersburg or Moscow, and you feel there's something about those pictures, or Russian like nesting dolls, or just things like that. And so that's how you can make kind of a connection there. On the other hand, with this card, a connection you can make is either one, if you were born into a traditional kind of family, or if people placed expectations on you, or you placed them on yourself about what you were supposed to be when you grew up. If there were expectations that you would grow up and get married and be a mother, and maybe you have the family that's like, where are my grandchildren? Where are my that kind of thing, if that happened to you. On the flip side, you could have chosen to be born into a family where there are no expectations and you have more freedom, because here we're seeing a life that's kind of very restricted and constricted. So in your current life, you might feel like you need to get out for a drive, get away. Maybe you want to travel a bit. Maybe because you were part of such a busy kind of lifestyle, maybe in your current life, either one, you're very sociable and you easily make friends and you like to go out and do stuff and see things, or on the flip side, you could be someone, because that's what was happening here, you could be someone who chose to come back and kind of live a quieter life, more isolated. Maybe you like to do, go see a movie alone, like that kind of thing. So that's how you can make connections either way, okay? So let's get back to this because I'm not done with the food card. Food is also used for you as a something to, what's it called? What's it called when you use something? It's like not an addiction, but it's like you're unhappy subconsciously, like you're unhappy, you don't know why you're unhappy kind of thing, so you eat, that kind of thing. So like stress eating. So in your current life, if you're a stress eater, that would stem from here. Or if you turn to food not only for yourself, but like to pacify other people, and that could stem from here as well, because I feel like not only did you kind of self-soothe with food in this life, but your family did too, because I feel like there's kind of a missing link of affection in this life here from your family, and it's like almost like they don't know how to like be emotional with their child. It was kind of a cold upbringing, I guess, if you will, the kind of thing where your nanny or your caretaker would be more supportive and more emotionally like involved in your life. So that too, make connections with that as well where you can. Also the idea of, if you actually were born into a family in this life that was pretty cold or non-affectionate. In the flip side, you could have picked a family that was super affectionate, you see? So there are different connections you could be making. So we're seeing the food card because we're seeing it play out in your life. But really what you're doing is you're just being a woman in the time period that you were born, expecting to be a mother and wife. That's why we're not seeing really a career out of it, but we are seeing something that is constant in your life. So it's not like you're very overweight, but we're seeing someone who carries a little bit of extra weight, and it's the emotional tie to that usually is like when there's extra weight, it's like a safety mechanism or like a safety blanket kind of thing. And because there's stuff deep down we're seeing in this person that can't come up just purely based on their circumstances that they live in. So in your life, if you've ever felt repressed, like you couldn't express yourself or couldn't go after certain things because of the circumstances that you were kind of born into or that you find yourself into, whether it's even your parents or it's, if you've actually created a family, you have a partner and kids, that too can create a stuck kind of feeling sometimes. And that's the kind of feeling that I'm getting here, is that this person is stuck all the time. So there's a turning to food a bit. And yeah, so let's go to the first important day. Here we have the birth card, and we have the soul group. That's the relationship involved, is the soul group, which is souls that come in and out of your lives with you to help you learn lessons by playing roles. And then this is the approval disapproval card, so that can mean one or the other or both. So I'm seeing what we're looking at here, and what's happening here is I feel like we're looking at your life getting on track with what was expected, because we're seeing you have a child here, and we're seeing you basically creating the family that everyone kind of saw you creating. What I do want to mention is that I feel like this kid that you have, though, has a problem, and I don't know what kind of problem it is, but it's enough to be noticeable. It's not like, it might be Down syndrome. I'm not sure if it is. It's like one of those, though. It's like a birth defect, I guess, even though Down syndrome isn't a birth defect. I mean, those are awesome people, but it's that kind of thing where you didn't see it coming, and then here's the child, and there's something with it. It could even be like a big birthmark on the face, like something noticeable where it's not even like, I'm not sure if it has to do with their brain or their aesthetics, like how they look, but there's something that is different about this kid. And this kid is part of your soul group. This kid came in to teach you a lesson because when you know, this person here in this lifestyle is expecting to have a perfect child. So this soul comes in to be born into a child that they consider not to be perfect, okay? And that was because it's here, this child came in to teach you to be accepting and loving and non-judgmental and unconditional love, all those wonderful lessons. And this approving disapproval card comes in because it's not really you, it's everyone around you. It's your family, it's even your partner. There's they love the child for it being a family member, and the child will be taken care of very nicely. However, the disapproval comes in because it's not a pretty kid. Like, it's not like, this kid is not what they expected. Like, they wanted like the golden child, and he was supposed to be, and so everyone got their expectations up. And then you have not the golden child, so to speak, even though this kid is like such a great kid, every baby's perfect, right? It's all about like the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So we're looking at a time in your life here where you are learning to grow and expand your soul and realizing that you need to have this unconditional love in order to get through, basically, because this kid is your kid. You can't get rid of it. So you have to come to a lot of terms with yourself and your belief system and how you see the world, and this changes you a lot, and it would change anybody, especially when it comes to their kids. So we're seeing a mother, kind of become a bit of a fighter for your kid. Like, there's an attachment that's happening, a bonding that's happening that didn't have to happen based on your your place in society. You could have just handed the kid over to the nanny and been like, bye, but you weren't. You are taking an active role in your kid's life, which, by the way, is not what your parents did for you. So we're seeing a transition of roles in the parental aspect. So in your current life, if you find that if you do have kids, if your goal was to treat them better than you were treated, or if you have kids and you told yourself, like, I'm never going to let this happen to my kid, or I'm going to make sure my kid has everything they need, or whatever it is, if there's an aspect of you as a mother, if you have kids, if there's that aspect of you as a mother wanting to make a better life or something better for the kids, your kids that you didn't have or that you wish was different, that would stem from here, because we're seeing someone change drastically. In fact, if you do have kids, that could have just changed your entire world, which is common, yes, but it could have been at a deeper level, not just like, oh, I have a kid, more like, oh, here's my soulmate, like that kind of thing. Because these kids, they play roles. They pick us as parents to play roles to help us grow as well as learn their own lessons. You know what I mean? So anyway, we're seeing a really interesting change happen. Now, the next important day, we see the move and let's go card. So it feels like someone is leaving. Here we have the child card, and here we have the held back card. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing society in action. We are basically seeing your kid getting to a certain age, and at that age, he's like, wherever we're looking at here, it would be common that children are sent to like a boarding school, is what it feels like. And I feel like your partner, more than anything, is more embarrassed by the kid based on whatever is altered with this child, whatever's different or flawed or whatever. And it feels like the decision's been made that you're going to be sending your kid to a boarding school so that he's not at home, and so the partner doesn't really have to deal with him. This has also driven you and your partner apart, because I would say that there was definitely great respect and admiration for each other based on the family status and things, but it was more like an arranged marriage. Like, there was a lot of courting with the families involved, and it just felt like more than not arranged, but you expected it. So that's not the hugest part of this life, but in your current life, if you feel like you need independence and it's important that you make your own decisions when it comes to who you surround yourself with. If that's very important to you, that would make sense, because it would stem from here, where a life where you really didn't get to choose who was around you. So in fact, in your current life, you could be more about making friends into your family. That could be more important, is having these very close friends that you cherish because you picked them and they're right for you, versus here where everything was kind of picked for you. So we're seeing this day where this kid is basically sent away without your permission, because it's just some, like, you could try to say no or put your foot down, but it's common anyway that kids would, these, I feel like it's common in this high society thing that these kids would be sent away. So it's not like, it's not the kind of thing where the kid goes and everyone's like, oh yeah, of course they're gonna send him away, he's weird, you know. It's instead, it's just like everyone's like, oh okay, he's going, but you know it's for a different reason. You know he wouldn't be sent away. He'd be staying with you if he was what everybody wanted him to be. So you might be someone in this life who really tries hard not to judge people, who tries to make people feel accepted and loved for who they are. That would definitely make sense if that's the case. You actually might be an advocate for people who have, what's it called, like birth defects or genetic diseases or whatever it is. Either one, you might be an advocate for them, or you might be someone where you read articles about these kids who are abandoned or these kids with problems, and that might trigger you emotionally. That might really pull at your heartstrings, and that would be because you've had a child like that. If you don't already have a child with some kind of birth defect in this current life, because that would be a choice from you and the child as well, because you got along so brilliantly here that in this current life you'd actually be a wonderful mother for that kind of child. So these feelings here are being held back, though. It's because you feel like you have no say. You have no say when it comes to your kid, the kid that you carried around for 9 months. You don't get to say, no, he's staying here. You have to go with the flow, just like you've been going with what other people have been kind of putting in your sight for your whole life. It's a normal thing. It's not, you can't help it. So in your current life, because you felt held back here for not making decisions, again, your current life, you might be very independent. You might be, you actually might be pushy to get your way to some extent, just because you couldn't get your way at all here. It's like you didn't have a voice, because here it was more like feeling like property than a person. So in your current life, you might be very picky about who your partners are. If you're not married, or if you are married, you might be very picky to pick someone who makes you feel heard, who lets you express yourself, who values your opinion. That might be very important to you, that kind of respect. And also you might be someone who makes sure that other people's voices are heard as well, because you just, especially you actually might be a fighter for, you might like a feminist kind of thing. You might really care about women's voices and women's issues. So here we have the death card, and this is murder. So I'm just trying to see what this is, because I feel like we're looking at you in the house, and I feel like what's happening, this is a weird kind of extreme case, because usually, like, murder doesn't have to be like full on intentional murder. It can actually be suicide. Like, murder can happen so many ways, and in a sense, as long as that, that little intent is there. And I feel like what we're looking at is a slow poisoning through the food, and I feel like you get sick over time. And I actually feel like this is the workings of possibly your partner here, because I feel like there's a thing going on where your partner is seeing someone else, and I feel like there's this little scam going on where, because you do indulge in food, I feel like they're using that in a sense against you. Like, the thing that comforts you the most is also the thing that's killing you, which is really interesting and ironic. So we're seeing, so honestly, if that's the case, you actually might have allergies to certain foods, and you might have like interesting allergies as well. You might experience issues with your throat, as far as your throat, maybe closing up, or having a like a cough or something, like where you want to push things up. Any breathing issues. You might have chronic fatigue where you're tired. You might feel dehydrated, and Yeah, there might be, just try to think if there's any natural aversions you have to foods or drinks for some reason. Like maybe you've never liked a certain kind of food and nobody knows why you don't like it because it's like normal for everybody else, but you just can't stand it. If that's the case, that could stem from here as well. And see if that food happens to be something like traditionally Russian, because there's a lot of meat over there and stuff. So just play with the idea and see what's up if that's the case. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Oh, this can also bring up if you're paranoid about if you're in a relationship, or if you've ever been in a relationship where you find you're paranoid about your partner, or you're insecure about them cheating on you or betraying you in some sense, and there is no real reason for the paranoia or the fear or that feeling. It would come from like a soul memory of being betrayed here by your partner, by the one person that you're supposed to be trusting. So you may have trust issues when it comes to people, or trust issues when it comes to lovers or partners in that regard, people who you let into your inner circle. So here we have the lesson, and the lesson here is self-love, and that's a perfect lesson to look at here, because here we find someone who it's interesting because there wasn't a lot of self-love, and the self-love you showed yourself here was unhealthy. So the self-love in comforting yourself with food is unhealthy. The self-love also got you in trouble here a little bit, because the self-love comes from like loving your child. That's you indulging in your desires here because you want to love this child that you feel like other people in your role would have kind of like, again, discarded the child, or just put it away so you didn't have to like spend time with it, kind of thing. And so we're seeing you indulge in your desires of taking care of this child that for the first time you're doing something that the rest of your family or society are telling you not to do, or they tell you, they think it's weird or wrong, and this is the one time that you're just putting your foot down and you're doing it. Like you're just like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, I want to love my kid, I'm gonna do it. So I feel like this has come up, this life, to give you that message again of love yourself, because if you want to help others, the most you can do, like the best way to do that is to make sure that you're taken care of, that you're happy, that you're able to that you have like the freedom to make choices, that you feel as independent as you want to feel. You need to feel how you want to feel, like how you can imagine yourself feeling in a life that's perfect. You can make those choices now in this time in history as a female. You can make those choices now to live that life. You have the opportunity. Here you didn't have the opportunity, but now you can indulge in that. And it's almost like a message coming up and telling you, take care of yourself, cater to yourself, like make yourself happy. And when you make yourself happy, it's going to ripple out and it's going to touch other people's lives, and it will influence other people and inspire others to be happy as well. And that's how you can help other people in that way. So yeah, I just feel like that's the main message. Self-love. Self-love is not selfish. It's not selfish at all. And so this would be coming up to tell you it's time to start, again, catering to yourself, following your dreams, doing what you love to do, and by doing that, it's going to lead you exactly where you need to be, okay? That's just how it works. So there's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it and were able to make connections, and thanks for letting me read you.